Companies that are replacing employees with AI and other forms of automation will see their ability to innovate slowly degrade. They will have replaced some undiscovered creative talent with robots unable to understand customer needs, complex processes, and gaps in service.
Yeah, so sometimes late at night I have thoughts. This is the nature of my brain. And I was really struggling because a lot of the people we compete with and we work with are either over leveraging LLMs or products built on LLMs, or misusing them or misunderstanding them. And that's a short-term problem. I think we're going to pretty quickly see that products like Cursor and Replit and all the others that are out there have a purpose. I mean, they're great. They're speeding things up, and I've got friends that are building the first version of their product, their MVP, on these platforms. And I got to thinking, what feels like a short-term problem is actually probably a long-term problem. And what we're going to see, and I've had arguments with a number of people about this, what we're going to see is that staff is being replaced, and not in the way that you or I are getting fired and replaced by AI, but we are not hiring more developers and we are not hiring more designers, young folks right out of college, because we can augment existing staff with these AI products. And what I worry about is someone like you coming out of college, or someone like anybody coming out of college right now, is not going to get a job, and they're not going to get on the track to learn new skills, and then they're not going to be there to provide the new ideas that these companies need. And that is something that we are nowhere near being able to replace with automation. We don't have creative automation. We have theft. We have automation that can steal ideas and repackage them, but we don't have robots that can make up new things anymore.
A Forbes article titled "AI May Be Erasing Entry-Level Jobs" mentions that new graduates hires are down 50%, and it ends with, "For new grads, the training wheels are gone."
Yeah.
For students coming up on graduation or recent grads trying to break in, like you just said, how can they stand out and land an entry-level role right now?
I can tell you one thing is, don't have AI polish your resume, because they're all the same. I don't know how many resumes a month, and they almost all start the same. All of their intros are, "I have a passion for building full stack apps." It is it's a sentence for almost every application I get. And it's tricky because I'm a small company. I look at every single resume that comes through, and I'm a human looking at it. If you're going to apply to somewhere like Salesforce, they're doing that with automation. And so if you don't have the right words in a resume, you're going to get screened out for not saying the right thing. So you're in this really tricky situation where you have this need to stand out, like you said, but if you stand out too much, if your cover letter or your resume is too different from everyone else's, you're never going to even get an interview, because the automated systems are going to screen you out. And so sounds defeatist almost, but I don't mean it that way, because I think there's a way to work around it. But right now the trick is, how do I make connections inside companies and industries as an entry-level person, or even in mid-career? How do I make those connections that these senior folks already have, so that I can get a nice introduction to somebody that's on the hiring team? So the standout is really, it's all about who you know. Everyone's been saying that for generations, right? It's about who you know. And I think that continues to be true, but for new reasons. It used to be that you needed to know people to get an interview, because they were only hiring their friends. And now it is, you need to know somebody inside the company or the industry to get an introduction, just to not get screened out by their automated services.
For people that are coming up on graduation or recent grads, how do they make that connection to get that introduction into the job?
I don't know, man. You reached out to me. You tell me. Cold outreach is good. Like, the fact that you just reached out to me on LinkedIn because we shared some connections and I went to UIndy for a while, that's powerful stuff, right? It says, I've got the audacity and the motivation to reach out and say hi, and you're not always going to get a response. Like, there was a non-zero chance I was going to completely ignore you, right? And I'm sure you have been ignored by people you've reached out to that way. But the other side of that is, you don't need everyone to respond. You just need the right people to respond. And so, having that motivation and that audacity to reach out to people and say, look, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I think you've got a great career. I'd love to learn from you. And I'm coming out of college in 6 months. If a job's in it, great. If not, I still want to learn.
Yeah. When someone does land that entry-level job, a big part of whether they succeed comes down to how they fit into the company culture. And you made culture a priority at Rocket Build, quoting, "I take great pride in building and supporting culture in a team that are value-based, future-focused, and collaborative." For students starting their first internships or jobs, what are the early signs of a healthy versus toxic company culture?
I think if you're in the interview process and the people you're interviewing with are afraid to show you who they are, that says something about the company. So if nothing, personal might be the wrong word, but if nothing, I can't think of a better one, personal comes out in those interviews from the interviewer, if they don't try to get to know you and if they don't explain, what they love about the company and why they like their coworkers and things like that, that's probably something to watch out for. Because if somebody interviewing you, whether it's the hiring manager or somebody in HR or a senior staff member is interviewing you, and they're not talking about how great it is to work there and why that is and why they love it, it probably isn't great to work there. They're maybe just there for the salary or for the experience. So take your cues. Social cues are really important, right? We're talking about business, but business is just relationships in most cases. So look for those cues in those interviews and in those conversations you're having that make you believe they love it there. And every culture is different. Everybody wants some of the same things, right? We want good work-life balance. We want to make sure we're making enough money to survive. We want to like the people we work with. We want to believe in the company's mission. All of the companies have those same things. And the difference is where are they at on that spectrum of we suck at these 4 things or we're great at these 4 things, and you'll know that by talking to the people who work there. No amount of marketing is going to tell you, no website is going to tell you, they can't tell you in the job posting how great a company is, and there's just no words for it. You have to feel it in those conversations.
We just talked about how hard it was to land that entry-level job. Should students still take that job, even if they get the interview and get the offer, if it's a bad company culture?
Yeah, that's a hard one, right? I think everyone will tell you that right now is a very tumultuous time to be entering the workforce. I will caveat that by saying every time has said that throughout history. So there's always going to be something new to navigate. And that's a really personal decision. So you have to navigate. Is it more important for me to have a paycheck and some experience for a couple of years? Am I in a position where I can't say no to a paycheck for personal reasons, and that's not for anyone else to decide? Or am I in a position where I can be picky? I'm okay continuing to deliver pizza, which is what I did for months after graduating college. I kept delivering pizza, which was my college job. And am I okay to keep doing something like that until I find a job in a place that I love? So that's a really personal question. I think if you're in that position, if you start your career in a toxic place, you're going to learn toxic habits, right? You learn from the mentors inside the organization, and you don't want to develop the bad habits that have potentially created a bad culture or bad business practices or something like that. So if you're in a position to ignore a paycheck for a short period of time and look for a better job with a better culture, do it every time. That's my suggestion, but not everyone can do that, and that's reality.
If someone gets on that small team or even a class project or a startup they're working on, and they want to change the culture, what are the 2 to 3 things they should do right away to set the tone and build that?
Small team. I think that's a great question, and that you caveated that with the small team, right? It's really hard to turn the Titanic, as people say, right? So, but if you just got a little tugboat, a dinghy, you can turn that pretty easily. So, yeah, you go into a team that's, let's say under 20 people. You can have an impact right out of the gate, just coming in with positivity. I think that's huge. When we hire folks both when I was at Rocket Build and when I was early on at Boardable and even now at Boundless, when we hire new people, we look for someone who's going to bring in some kind of positive energy that's going to either help us keep our positive cultural momentum or improve it even. Some of the best hires I've made were people that came in and they just loved learning, and it just it was all over them. That's all they wanted to do, and that's huge, right? You come in and you get other people around you excited by coming in and saying, "Hey, I want to learn everything you can tell me," and you just start taking notes or just listening to everything everyone says. That energizes people around you as well. So I think coming in with that positive attitude and the willingness to learn and listen and showing that empathy to get what you can out of the team that exists also sort of reflects back on that team and makes them energized as well.
So you're saying that you should be positive and energetic towards the other team to shift the entire culture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. And then that tone is one thing, but the team also has to trust one another. How do you build trust, especially as a founder when pressure's high and you don't exactly have a clear path forward?
I don't think you ever have a clear path forward. So that's just constant when you're an entrepreneur. The nature of the game is just constant pivoting. So building trust, this is a hard one. I start with trust. If I hire you, I trust you. That's just kind of the default space that I'm in, and my co-founder Caleb is the same way. When we hire you, it is trust, not trust but verify. It's just trust, trust, and then when someone drops the ball, you help them pick it up, and you learn. You teach them how to dribble better, right? That's just how work works. So we start with just a foundational level of trusting each other. I mean, my business partner and I do right out of the gate. Our investors trust us just right out of the gate. You can't micromanage people, not unless they ask for it. And some people do require that, and they like it. They like to be told exactly what to do and when. But most people want to come in, learn from the people around them, feel like they are A, trusted, and B, contributing. And if they do that, they then exude that to the people around them as well. So let's use an example. We hired a developer. Our most recent developer hire at Boundless was about 9 months ago, give or take. And he's remote. He's in North Carolina. Great dude. What we really like about what he did coming out of the gate was he just said, look, I am very experienced at this one thing that I do, and I want to be a resource to everybody on the team for that, and here's how I can do that, and here's how I'm going to make myself available. But what he also did was say, I have a ton to learn about the other 12 things you guys do, and I need to try it first. I want you to trust me to try it, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I also want to take critical feedback. So he develops that trust by saying two things. I'm good at what I do and I'm here to help. I need to learn a lot about what I don't know, and I am really good at accepting feedback. And that develops a ton of trust when your supervisor or your teammate can come to you and say, hey, I really like what you did here. I feel like it's about a B+, which is great. I mean, we can ship code that's a B+ all day long because all code gets rewritten over time anyway. But you said you wanted to get to an A+. So here are the things that I would do to get you to an A+. And let's try to implement them on the next one.
Gotcha. And then that clear path and uncertainty doesn't just show up in leadership and trust, it shows up in your career too. You've worn a lot of hats: educator, probation officer, pizza delivery driver, product designer, and CEO.
Yep.
How do you know when it's time to pivot or move on?
I don't know that I have a good answer for that question. A lot of life, just in general, and particularly in business, is being approached by somebody that's got a great idea, knowing it's a great idea, and saying, I'm going to come along for the ride. That's what I originally did when I made the shift from public sector, working as a probation officer, and then in the university as a researcher, and said, I want to go private sector. I want something new. The team that I hopped on with is called Smallbox, they're a creative agency. And the leadership there was just like, hey, we hire people, we don't hire roles. And I thought that was really exciting. They were like, hey, we love your varied background. We'd love you to come on and do this job you've never done before, but we think you have the skills based on what you've done in the past. And we're going to, again, it comes down to trust. We're going to trust you to do this role that you've never done, and you're going to learn a lot along the way. So, you're gonna have a lot of times, everyone has a lot of times in their life when they're presented with an opportunity, and you never know whether it's a good opportunity or a bad one, but you know how you feel about it. And if you have that positivity and that energy when you're approached with that opportunity, you gotta jump. As long as you're in a place in your life when it makes sense, jumping into that opportunity is a great idea. So that's one kind of pivot, right? A career pivot. I think a business pivot's a little bit different. That's a little more data driven. That's a little more, there's some gut and some vibe to it, right? Like, it's hard to know what's going to happen with the economy all the time, but even more now than it has been in a long time. So, some of that's gut, some of it's looking at the data and saying, look, investment's drying up. It's going to be hard for us to find customers that are startups, which is what we focus on at Boundless. We work with startups and founders. Do we need to consider some kind of pivot right now toward more established brands where they have budgets and they're looking to innovate internally? And so that's a conversation we're having right now. Is we love doing this startup and this founder support work, but investment's really low low right now in some of these products. Everybody wants to invest in AI and they want the cheapest, fastest solution to get something to market in 2 months, and that's not our business model. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to go to the folks that understand that what they're trying to build is for the long term. It needs to be secure, it needs to be stable. What are those folks? Well, those are established brands. Those are corporations. Those are medium-sized businesses that have been around for 10 plus years. Those are nonprofits that have scale, and those are government entities sometimes, including universities. So we're going through that process right now, looking at the data, looking at where we're winning and where we're losing in the market, and saying, okay, we think we can make this shift based on our skill set and what we're seeing in the marketplace toward more established brands, and try to maybe do 50-50 rather than 80% startups and 20% established brands.
You said on the personal side, it's based on, how you feel, were the exact words.
Yeah.
How can people use that, but also avoid the shiny object syndrome, where it's after a year, something gets hard, and then they jump to another ship, and then a year later, they jump to another ship?
Yeah.
What's the system and framework that you do to navigate that?
Is there a system or framework for that? I'm not aware of one.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, you said the word shiny object, and you also said things get hard and people move on. I think those are two different things. I've known a lot of people, and I'm one of them. The shiny object is fun and exciting, and it's not necessarily that I don't like what I'm doing or there's not an opportunity there. It's that, hey, there's this opportunity I can capture over here, and I'm really excited about it. So that's the shiny object syndrome, is I'm going to bounce at least some of my time over to this cool, new, exciting thing, while also keeping some of my time on the old thing we were doing because it's stable and it's good and people love it. The bigger problem is the second one you mentioned, which is things get hard. And if things get hard, I think that's an opportunity to maybe look at that challenge as your shiny object, right? If you like the company you're working in and you like the kind of work that you do, but you hit a hurdle or a roadblock, the difference between someone who loves what they do and is willing to work hard is that they can jump those hurdles or push through those roadblocks. And I don't think there's a process for doing that. I think it's a conversation with yourself and with the people around you that you trust, and saying, look, I'm really struggling with this new role or with this new thing that they have me doing in my role. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I want to do it. And it's as simple as a pros and cons list sometimes. What do I love about what I'm doing, and can I make it through? Or are there just too many cons and it's time for me to look at finding some other thing that I should be doing? Sometimes the simple answer is the right one. Pros and cons. I use a pros and cons list so much. It's such a tried and true way of looking at things. So if there's any system I use, it's probably that one. I also strongly believe there's a philosophy. What's the guy's name? I can't remember the name of the guy that wrote the book, but it's called Strengths Finder. It is a very quick read. It helps you kind of just establish what your strengths are from a business and operational standpoint, and promotes leaning into those strengths. So sometimes it's a matter of looking at what are my strengths and saying, is the role that I'm in playing to my strengths, or is it playing against them? And if your job is constantly telling you to overcome your weaknesses rather than play to your strengths, it's probably the wrong role. We all need to overcome some of our weaknesses sometimes, but if we're in a role that says all I want you to do is overcome your weaknesses and not use your strengths, that's the wrong role, I think.
If you had the chance to do it over, would you enter the job market straight away and being those uncomfortable situations, or take the leap and build something of your own?
I didn't know I was an entrepreneur until I was in my 30s, so I got a late start. And I say that, and I realize as I'm saying it, it's not entirely true, because I ran businesses in college. In the mid to late 90s, I was building websites before the internet was really much of a thing. We're talking about basically pre-Google, and I'm building websites, right? While getting a degree in sociology. So, unrelated things, I found an interest in websites. I started building them, and that was my first business. Helped me pay my way through college while also delivering pizza, as we mentioned earlier. So, I've been starting businesses since I was essentially 18. But I thought I had to follow my degree. Since I studied sociology, or I finished with sociology and psychology, I thought, well, I need to be going and doing work that's in that field, right? So I went into working with troubled teens essentially as a probation officer, and it's very social services driven. People think of it as law enforcement, but it's not. It's very social services, and it was very rewarding. But I don't think it scratched the itch that I have to be creative. And so over the course of about 10 years, I very, very slowly pivoted back toward what I was doing in college, which was building cool things. And so if I had it to do over again, I think I would worry less about what I'm studying and worry more about what I love to do. And that probably would have led me into a more creative or technology based field right out of college. I don't know that for sure. The economy was also bad then, just like everyone's like, it's really hard to get a job coming out of college. It's literally always true. But we're talking 2001, 9/11 just happened. The world was tumultuous, right? And so I was in that job market, and I really wanted to use my degree, and so that's the direction I went. But, I've never been asked that question before. My gut tells me that I probably, had I been more reflective, I should have followed my interest rather than my degree.
For students who are thinking about launching something straight out of college, even if it fails, how should they think about the risk and lessons that come with that? Because you don't have the skills from a senior level job starting out or the experience before.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, again, I don't remember the name of the book. There is I guess I would call it a business philosophy out there that says everyone has two stages in their career: their early career, which is generally pre-40, and their late career, which is generally post-40. And in your early career, that's when you tend to have your best ideas. That's when you are your most innovative. That is when you are looking at the system around you and saying, how do I break it or make it better, right? That's just how the brain works until it gets to a certain point. And it's when it gets to that 40, 45-year age, you start thinking about things more concretely. You start relying on your experience. You have a consultative approach rather than a creative approach. And so I think that earlier in your career, you should be embracing your ideas and pursuing them to the extent that it makes sense for you and your family. Now, for most of us, that means that we're working a day job. We're doing whatever we need to do to pay the bills, to provide for our family, to pay the rent, that sort of thing. And then also working a second job, a side hustle, that is the thing we love, right? And it's not dissimilar to what you're doing. You have your business while you're finishing school, right? Your full-time job is finishing school and doing as well as you can there. Your hustle is the thing that you love doing and you're pursuing it. And so I think that mentality is a very good one. I think it can be taken too far. People are leaning hard into the gig economy because it gets employers off the hook for paying things like benefits and taxes and all kinds of other things. So you don't want to lean too far into just hustling, because that's just not a sustainable way to do the economy at all. But I think having that side hustle, that passion, and pursuing it on the side is a great idea. If you're in a position where you can make that hustle full time and you can give yourself a year where you're like, hey, for whatever reason, I'm living with friends and my costs are low, or I've got family support, or whatever the reason might be. If you can devote 40 hours or 60 hours a week to the thing you love for a year right out of college, you're probably going to have a really great time and a good experience, right? You're going to develop some skills that you never would have had to develop if you were working for somebody else. So I didn't know anything about finance or marketing or sales until I was in my mid-30s and made that career shift. Had I been working on that stuff right out of college, who knows what I'd be doing right now? I love what I'm doing, but if I had that extra 15 years of experience with those things that you can really only learn by doing, I could be in a completely different place. So,
do you think students should take that, the 40 hours a week after college to maybe have a really good time and maybe have success, or jump into something sustainable like you did, work, build up some capital, and then jump into it?
I'm going to cop out again and say it depends on your personal situation, obviously, but ignoring that, obviously people make the right decision for themselves based on their financial and personal needs. But barring that, I would struggle to go into a corporate stable position at 21 or 22. Our economy has skewed so far toward corporations that they no longer have to be good employers sometimes. There are some good corporate employers, don't get me wrong, but it's not a requirement anymore. So even those jobs that feel like they're safe and stable really aren't. Since the 80s, we have been slowly tracking toward a place where workers are, well, we call them resources, right? We call them human resources. That's how we view them as corporations. They look at them and say, look, you're just a number on a spreadsheet. I need to get rid of some numbers. Let's get rid of this one, and this one, and this one. So looking at the stable jobs in corporate America, it's a little bit of a fallacy with few exceptions, right? You go into these big corporations and you're not safe. They don't provide you great benefits anymore. The salaries are not much better than what they are at some of the smaller and medium-sized businesses. The stability is not there because they're looking at shareholders every quarter and saying, I need to make you money so that our stock price goes up. And that means that they're just in this cycle of annually or quarterly cutting people and getting rid of good employees because they just need to make the number go up. And so I think it's an illusion. I think stability is an illusion, particularly with entry level. So if you are in a position where you can go do your own thing and have fun doing it, I'll pick that every time.
Gotcha. So stability is an illusion, and stability can also be associated with success. Do you agree with that? Stability and success?
Let's define success for a minute. So
that's what my next question was. Yeah. If we removed your job titles, funding rounds, and companies, how would you define success in your own life?
Yeah, that's great. This is what I try to instill in the companies that I run, which is make sure you like what you're doing, the people that you work with, and that you are adding value where you can, right? Those are things that are really, really important. And that applies as an employee, but also as a company. So I want success to mean to everyone who works with me that I like what I'm doing. We're having an impact. We're helping founders get businesses launched. That's really cool. And that I'm providing good jobs to people that otherwise may be getting taken advantage of somewhere else. That's what drives our economy, right? Is people having good jobs and being able to spend money, and capitalism. that's capitalism. We need to be able to consume to sustain it. And we can only do that if we're providing good jobs to people. So success to me is having a company, no matter what the size is, where I can pay people a good salary. They have benefits, they are secure, and they're enjoying what they're doing. I think a lot of people would argue that success is number going up, valuation going up, salaries, your personal salary as a CEO or a founder going up. And that's a small part of it. People will argue that innovators and entrepreneurs and business leaders won't do it if they're not making buckets and buckets of money. Well, we know that to be false. Historically, we know that to be false. People who want to build things, and success follows. So, define your own success, but for me it's that providing those good jobs, having a good fun place to work, and making a social impact where we can.
When you look at the next generation of CEOs or founders, either starting in your 30s like you did or coming straight out of school, what do you think they're getting right and what do you think they might be overlooking?
I think that so getting right, obviously following a passion is always getting it right, even if it fails. Give yourself a short runway, try to follow that passion. That's getting it right out of the gate. The other big thing is anytime you can start something with people that you like, love, trust, whatever those words might be for you, that's a win. That's getting it right too. Like a lot of people say, don't work with friends. I disagree entirely. Like, you can't only work with friends, but you've got trusted relationships with these folks. You've gone to school with them, or you grew up with them, or you just love the vibe you're getting from this new person that you met. There's no reason you can't jump into something with somebody like that and have a good time, and sort of follow your heart a little bit. Start something with people you trust, and pursue it to the extent that it makes sense for you financially and personally. I don't know that I answered your question in any way whatsoever, but that's where my mind went.
Getting it right is following a passion even if it fails. But what do you think they're overlooking?
Overlooking, again, working with people that you already know and trust. So work with friends if you can. Maybe don't work for friends unless you're okay with that dynamic, but working with friends is a good thing. Don't assume that you're going to have later to make life good for yourself. A lot of people, and this has been perpetuated for generations at this point, they say grind in your 20s and 30s and then enjoy life after that. That's backward. Man, if I could restructure the entire economy of the world, I would say everyone should get to retire between 20 and 30. You just get to explore, right? You get to explore the world. You've got the energy, you've got the passion for it. You might be building things, but you don't have to worry about making a salary. You don't have to go grind core just to survive. And then we would work hard our 30s through our 60s and then retire again, right? But we don't work that way. So I would say you have to find that balance in your 20s and 30s where you can enjoy the things in life that are not work. It's important to enjoy work when you can, but it's more important to enjoy the things that aren't work, your relationships, your free time, your hobbies, those sorts of things.
Are you a believer in work-life balance at an early stage of your career?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because for most people, life doesn't happen at work. Mm-hmm. Life happens outside of work.
Does a startup, in your opinion, take time to build?
It does, yeah.
So why shouldn't someone, if they want to be successful early in their career, dedicate 60, 70 hours per week and invest everything they have in that startup and take time to go hang out with their friends, hang out with their family?
I'm not saying people shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. I'm saying people shouldn't be forced to do that. So
it's a choice.
It's a choice. It absolutely should be a choice. So there was just something posted on LinkedIn maybe a couple of weeks ago that said large employers, particularly tech companies, are telling new hires prepare to work 60 hours a week. And that's not healthy. That's not how you build a good society. I don't care about Facebook. Who cares if Facebook is good? But that's not how you build a good world to live in, right? You build a good world by allowing people the time to start families and have solid relationships upon which they're going to form the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I grew up with a dad that worked 60 hours a week when I was young. I didn't love that. Does anybody really want that? Yeah.
Moving on, we're finishing up here. So these are quick questions. What is one book every student should read before graduation?
I'm so bad with book titles. I like Resilience. I cannot remember the author's name, but it's a book called Resilience. The guy that wrote it is a Navy SEAL. And while I don't agree with all the personal philosophies espoused in it, I think the core component, which is learn how to deal with adversity in a way that's healthy, I think that is just really important for everyone starting life. Yeah, go ahead.
One skill business students aren't learning in class they need?
Writing. Oh my gosh. Everyone writes so poorly. That's not literally true, obviously, but as a teacher, I saw very smart people that could converse just fine during class, could not write. So learn to write. Not the way you write on social media, the way you write to appear intelligent.
One belief about leadership that took you too long to unlearn?
That I need to be right.
Why?
Well, I don't need to be right. Someone needs to be right, and I need to follow that person's opinion, right? It doesn't have to be me. If it's my business partner or an employee or a friend who is right about a situation, I need to be able to see that and not let the ego of my opinion or my belief get in the way.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it's great.
We're good.